up, Holmes?
Beware your host, Jonathan Holmes.
And that was especially startling this week. Thank you, Sinistar. I was really scared. Thanks so much for joining us on Sup Holmes, the live stream talk show slash podcast for video game people. We have a video game person on the show, Sean Velasco from WayForward. How are you, Sean? How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great. Kind of enjoying the end of my long weekend, and I'm ready to get into it. So.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Whoa! What are you going to get into?
Well, there's been a lot of polarizing reviews about not only Double Dragon Neon, but a lot of the games that I've worked on. So I'm kind of I'm not to say that I'm looking for a fight today, but I just really love to talk about everything. Just kind of no holds barred. I think that'd be cool.
That it's one of the reasons I tend to try to get smaller developers on the show is because you're allowed to actually say what you think.
Yes.
Other developers, they want to say something, they'll let something slip, like, oh, I think the Wii U kind of sucks. And then before you know it, they have to backtrack for days because of all of the people they're beholden to. But not you, Sean. You can say whatever you want. That's very exciting.
Yeah, I hope so anyway. I hope I don't get in too much trouble.
Well, you've got great social skills. We first met years ago when you had a beard. I don't know if you remember me from back then.
I'm very just sorry to say that I did a million Boy and His Blob things back to back to back to back, and yeah, I'm really super sorry.
What? Don't be sorry. No, it was a good time. And if you don't remember me, it's fine. I was just another bald head in the crowd back then. But yeah, we got along very well, and you played the Conduit on a video I did about the developers playing.
Okay, no, I completely remember playing the Conduit. Yes, and I remember playing it, and there were the high voltage guys there, and I was talking it up, and that was it was super cool.
Yeah. Even then, I was like, I want to know what developers who are allowed to say what they think will say about their games and other people's games. So I tried to get everyone playing each other's games, and you had a favorable impression of the Conduit, which a lot of people did at the time. For the time, the pointer controls felt so fresh. This is before PlayStation Move and before there were tons of first-person shooters that had that control scheme, and I really enjoyed it for what it was at the time.
I think that the pointer controls is kind of maybe the best thing to come out of the Wii. I think one of my favorite Wii games that uses the Wii remote is Resident Evil 4 on the Wii.
Yeah.
Just because the pointer is so good. So yeah, I mean the Conduit had it. They did a sequel, and then I wonder if there's anything coming down the pipe. But
there's a 3DS version they were tooling around with. I saw a little bit in 2010. But it's all in flux. I'm worried about those guys, basically. I hope they're all right. But anyway, yeah, they are cool guys. But about you, when did you get started in this video game industry? Your first game with WayForward was Contra 4, I think. But is that your first game ever, or how did you get into it?
Okay, well, I went to a school in Northern California called Cogswell College. And there were maybe 200 students at the whole thing, and my degree is in computer video imaging with a focus in game design. So that's what I did. But it's tiny school, and it was the classes were okay, but I think it was way more about just the people that I met. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of those people have come to WayForward. Austin Ivan Smith I met at Cogswell. He just directed Switch Force HD. And so he's there. Stephen Foote was a guy that developed a lot of our engine tech. So a lot of these guys were guys that I met in school, and so I kind of just brought a lot of them with me to WayForward. But before that, I had a company, and we were called Happy Fun Team, and we made one mobile game, and it was The Nightmare Before Christmas, and it was like an Adventures of Lolo style Sokoban box pusher. Right, and this was on Series 60 phone. So this is before iPhone, way back. And this is another good one. Capybara, or now Cappy Games. Mm-hmm. They're we saw them as our main competition. They had a game called Super Shove It, and it was a block pushing game. And we're oh man, we get stupid Cappy and their stupid Super Shove. It's so much better than ours, So after our game, we didn't get any more work after that, and so we kind of closed shop, and then I went to WayForward. And then the first game to come out that I worked on at WayForward was Contra 4, where I was assistant director.
Huh, awesome. And it's so funny. Everyone I've talked to at WayForward on this WayForward Vember series we've been doing in November, has talked about Adventures of Lolo at least once. Like,
Well,
everyone at your studio seems to have Lolo on the mind, which begs, would you ever make a new Adventure of Lolo game if it
oh
was
my God.
offered to you?
Yeah, are you kidding me? I would love that. I mean, at this point, what would it really be though? Would it be just a straight up block pusher with HD graphics? I mean,
Well, knowing you, you would dig very deeply into both the things that people love on the surface of the series, but also the idiosyncrasies that make a series both beloved and sometimes despised, and just blow those up to the fullest proportions. That's what I've seen you do pretty consistently in all of your games. Contra 4 is arguably the hardest, most punishing Contra in the series, I think, which is saying a lot.
yeah,
Boy and His...
hard, right?
Oh no,
Like
Google Chrome. What? Are you still there?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me?
I just got a thing saying my computer is about to die.
Uh-oh.
So keep talking and we'll see if I survive.
Okay. So yeah, sorry. Contra 4, we were saying, was like one of the hardest Contras. Oh, because we're just magnifying everything, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, first of all, thank you. I think that's like really huge compliment. And I kind of didn't realize, I think until Double Dragon, I didn't realize maybe like what my signature style, if you could call it that, is. And it's like, man, yeah, like Blood Rain. Okay. When Blood Rain came out, which was the game that, we did before Double Dragon, I thought everyone was going to love it. I was like, this is going to get like 9 out of 10, and it's going to be like the coolest, like hardcore action game ever. And, it's just going to be like well received. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But then, as you know, there were some very stark contrasts, and Destructoid's own, Jim Sterling gave us a 2 out of 10.
Did he really?
Yes, for Blood Rain. And I was like, I mean, like I was just looking at my screen, like what? Like does not compute, right? And
yeah.
And then IGN gave us a 9 out of 10.
Right.
Blood Rain, right? And so it's like we've been joking. It's like driving, right? Like 2 in 10. These are the games that we developed. Yeah.
What do you think? I'm assuming it's got to do with the fact that the way your games make people feel, they can have just a feel bad experience with them for whatever reason, and then an amazing experience with them. May give you a feel bad experience, or maybe next to perfect. Like you said, IGN loved everything about the game. I'm trying to recall what Jim's specific complaints were, but I remember them coming off as pretty subjective. I don't remember him saying anything was objectively wrong with it, but that he just had trouble moving around and doing the stuff, and he loved the art, but he like fell down or something. I can't remember the details. But
yes, it's the control. Like I think most people that had problems with the game had problems with the control. And I think the answer, or I think what went wrong is they were playing it and they were getting through it okay, but they weren't really understanding all of the mechanics. And then once you hit that wall where you have to use all the mechanics, which I think is a place that sometimes like modern games just don't ever go. Like they introduce their mechanics, but you never have to use them like to their fullest, And so if you don't have a total understanding of how to like move Rain around and how to use the dash to get through attacks, how to use your bullets efficiently, those are things that if you don't know how to do it, by the time you get to the wall, I think you're going to stop having a good time. And so I think it's a couple of things. One of them is the difficulty of the game may just be too difficult for some players, right? And that's something that they're just not going to be able to get over. But the other thing is I think we could probably have done a better job at introducing the mechanics and ramping them a little bit more smoothly so players could learn them better. And I think the same thing goes for Double Dragon. We saw a lot of reviews where it would be, punching. It's like, punching and kicking is all I can do, right? Or I didn't even use the magic, or I didn't end up throwing people, or guys just keep knocking me down. And well, all of those things are going to happen if you're not using the full array of moves that are given to you in the game. But I don't think it was made really clear all the time that you were doing something that needed to be corrected.
Yeah, I find that with a lot of games that I have a ton of respect for, but understand why other people didn't get the most out of them. There's some games that you really have to teach yourself how to play. You get taught the basics, but in order to really be shown how to play on the deepest levels, you end up having to do it on your own. I don't know if you've played any of Vanquish. It's a Platinum Games third-person shooter. With
I absolutely love Bayonetta, and I played through Bayonetta like 8 times, but I have not. I've played maybe 1 or 2 levels of Vanquish.
Huh. And that's the thing about it. It's got a really deep system, a really deep dash and like slow-mo system. Very similar to Beautiful Joe. It's almost like a Beautiful Joe third-person shooter, except Beautiful Joe taught you like step by step, this is the best time to use slow motion in order to stop the bullets or to get around the certain enemy, and you have to zoom on these guys to do your combo at a certain time. Vanquish just kind of hoped you would figure it out on your own, and the people who did figure it out on their own say it's a 10 out of 10, and the people who didn't give it like a 3 because they never ended up experiencing the depth of it because they didn't put the time in and the effort in to learn it on their own. So that's kind of a common thing that happens with really good games from what I've seen anyway.
Well, I think sometimes it's worth it. It's worth it to learn how to play a difficult game. Like, Super Metroid is probably my favorite game of all time. And to learn all of the little secrets and like moves that you can do in that game to get your score or your time down to like sub 1 hour is like, for me, like that's where like the fun of the game, like that's where the meat of the game is. And you can do ridiculous stuff in Super Metroid. Like, are you familiar with any of the sequence break stuff or what they do in Super Metroid at all?
A little bit. I'm trying to think. Super Metroid always impressed me as to how many situations it would get you stuck in that made you feel like, oh, I broke the game. I'm stuck.
Right.
Like, I'll never forget the time I fell down a pit and some little green, like, Mogwai type guys were like, hey, we're going to do some jumps off the wall. And I'm like, good for you, Mogwai guys. I'm screwed. I just broke the game. But and it didn't give you any other guidance beyond that. It was just like, oh, maybe if I copy what they're doing, and this is pre-internet, so it's not like I could just look it up. On my own, I eventually figured that out. And I felt like I sequence break. Even though that was intended, I felt like I found a glitch in the game because nothing in the instruction booklet or no tutorials showed you that. So I felt like I learned it on my own, which was a great feeling. And I know there's a lot more to Super Metroid than that in terms of sequence breaks they didn't actually intend, but I've never done them. Not good enough.
And I think about sometimes, like, when you're playing Super Metroid, that is the feeling that you get. It's like, well, did I break it? And I think maybe sometimes you did break it. And maybe they didn't mean for you to do that. Like, for instance, you can get to Kraid without getting the high jump boots just by running and doing a jump up onto like this little ledge and then doing a wall jump back up onto to get to his area. And so it's a small sequence break, and by doing a wall jump you can get up there, but it doesn't really make a big difference in the game. There are also things like if you about the shine sparking, right? Like if you're running at a really high speed and then you duck, you can do like this dash that just jets you across the screen at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but you use up like some of your health.
Right,
well,
and you never actually have to use that in the game, I don't think, but there's a lot of cool places you could.
You don't have to use the shine spark, but the way that it works is there is a runway, so you need to be maybe you need to go maybe 2 submaps, 2 screens, or something to that effect to get up to full speed. But that's if you press forward and the run button at the same time. But if you press forward and you take maybe like 1 step and then you press the run button, then you get up to full speed much faster. It's called like short dashing, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so it's like I don't know, there are just so many very subtle details to that game that just make it feel like so much richer to me. And but then again, I think those are some of the things that make it more inaccessible to some people,
Yeah, the base level game people get into for just the sense of isolation and the exploration and the cool weapons you get, and but there's a whole other metagame stacked into it if you can find it. They did a little bit of that with Metroid Fusion too. I don't know if you know, there's a sequence break where I think you can avoid getting the ice missiles if you do this huge, like, complicated workaround.
This is in Fusion? Because I know in what's the other, in Zero Mission, that it was very weighted towards sequence breaking. Like I think that you would actually unlock pictures of Samus if you had like fewer than 4% of the items or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's a really cool secret ending. But in Fusion, they actually made it so you get a different in-game conversation if you get
Oh
to a
wow.
certain place by like a ridiculous, unnecessary sequence break that's really, really hard. You talk to the computer. It's like, what are you doing in here? You're not supposed to be at this part of the game yet. It was really, really nice
That's so
acknowledgement.
awesome.
Yeah, it
Wow.
was cool. And then Other M happened.
Yeah, man, don't even get
Oh,
me started.
I
I
know.
okay, this is another good one because Ninja Gaiden Black is another game that I just hold up in esteem like as one of like the best action games like ever made. And
Mm.
so I was like, okay, Team Ninja, who made Ninja Gaiden Black, is gonna make a Metroid, and so it's like this is gonna be the absolute best thing that I could possibly imagine. It like Sakamoto's coming back and he's gonna do like the story and like he's gonna oversee everything. It's gonna be great. And then it was like I I mean like I felt the same way Samus must have felt, just kind of like crying to herself in front of Ridley the whole time. It was just,
I've tried playing it again recently, and it's if you forget it's a Metroid game, and if you forget it's a Team Ninja game, if you just forget everything about it and just take it as like a game about walking around a spaceship and shooting aliens occasionally, it's not the worst. But
no,
boy, as a follow-up to Super Metroid, they really were asking for it in terms
yeah.
of expectation.
Well, okay. You know what I'll say about Other M that I really like is the like her walk cycle and how heavy she feels
Mm.
as she's running around is really cool.
That was so nice of you.
That's the best. That's you know what. Whenever anyone asks me about Other M, that's what I'll say. It's like if
Yeah,
you don't have anything nice to say. It's like her walk cycle in that game is just great.
and she's got a great personality too.
Yeah.
Now, if you were given a Metroid game, just you, Sean Velasco,
Ooh.
you're given Metroid. Have you given any thoughts to what you would do with that series had you the opportunity?
Oh my gosh, it's like it's too big. It's like finding out. Ugh, it's
You'd
like
stick
finding
with
out.
2D, I assume. Would you stick with 2D platforming, or would you want to
Well,
do a
I mean,
mix?
it would definitely it would be 2D gameplay, right?
Mm. Hmm.
Even if it were a combination of 2D and 3D, like polygons and sprites, right? I
Sure,
would
for
probably
sure.
keep it to side scrolling.
Hmm.
Man, it's just so big. I think the thing that you would want to do is not just retread Super Metroid
Hmm.
and just try to forge ahead and make something, but then like you're saying, just take it all to the max. The sense of isolation is like a really big
Hmm.
deal. So you want to emphasize that as much as possible.
Hmm.
Like the organic moments. Like the best thing about Metroid is that they never stop you for a cutscene, and that they never or they never used to.
Right.
They yeah, and like okay, like in Metroid Zero mission, there's this really great part where you see the two space pirates carrying the power bombs away.
Mm.
And so you know that part? It's like you're going up in the rafters or you're underneath, and so you're just crawling down at the bottom, and then up here you can't interact with it, but you see those space pirates carrying away the power bombs, and now you know it's like, oh, the power bombs are my goal, and that's where I'm going. It's
Hmm.
the same thing like with the SAX in Metroid Fusion. You're at the top, and then the SAX comes walking in. The music drops down. It gets like super scary, and it just keeps walking in. And then of course you fall through the bottom, and all hell breaks loose. But that type of stuff, those moments, like that's what for me defines Metroid. That and like
Hmm.
using all of these mobility moves as lock and key mechanisms to get you through the game. So
Right.
it's like keeping. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. For me, Metroid 1 was the first Metroid I played, and I want Nintendo to get back to what Metroid 1 did. I don't think any of the other series did, which is really intentionally screw with you. Like, to me, the first 10 minutes of Metroid, that opening sequence where at that point, almost every game was about running from left to right. So you just appear, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to run right. And
Mm-hmm.
then you fight some guys, and you're like, oh, I must be playing the game right because I'm fighting some guys. And then you just get completely stuck. You're just at a brick wall. You're like, well, I guess I suck at this game. The end. But if you're the kind of person who thinks, maybe I can do things in a way that I've never done them before in a video game, and walk left when you start, all of a sudden, right there's a ball that in order to get it, and they don't teach you how to use it, you have to jump up to get it, and then screw yourself in a dead end and then touch a ball that just says, "Oh, morph ball." Now you know. Oh, I don't think it even says anything in the first Metroid. It just makes a little
No,
sound.
yeah, it just
And
makes
then
sense.
after that, you have to figure out, oh, if I press down, of course, I turn into a basketball and
That's
can roll under a thing. And it's just like, this game, what that showed me was this game could literally do anything, and I have no idea what to expect. It's going to throw curveballs at me intentionally just to blow my mind. And all the Metroid games have done that to some degree afterwards, but the first one really did that the most, at least for me. And I hope they get back to that.
That is I can't remember not knowing going left and getting that morph ball. Like, but
Mm,
that's so ingrained into my brain. It's awesome that you bring that up because it's like, yeah, that is a huge gameplay thing that probably made a gigantic difference to so many people when they booted that game up for the first time. And like somehow in my brain, it's like so innate. It's like knowing to hit blocks with Mario's head. You know, it's
sure,
like, oh,
sure, sure.
like if I hit this, there could be something under it. It's like, yeah,
I remember I had that feeling for the first time when I first played Mario Brothers. I'd played actually regular Mario Brothers, then Super Mario Brothers for the first time.
mhm.
Just playing along, hit a block, and it explodes. I'm like, this guy's a fucking badass. How did he do that? I thought he was just a regular Mario guy, but he's like breaking up. It was a whole new level for. Then after I knew that, I thought maybe I can break every block in the game. Maybe I
Right.
can like make my own path. Maybe then you find all the secrets to
Yeah,
that. It's
you
a
can explore.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said, then you start to explore, and then it's like something, a side scroller, which you'd imagine would be so linear, is
Mm,
actually like an exploration game because you're actually hitting like every block. It's
exactly. And then the warp zones. Don't get me started on that. How
well,
that
and the whole thing is, 20 years later is still just as valid as it was the day it came out, right? And you can just look at like Mario Wii, which have you had a chance to play the Wii U New Super
Yeah,
Mario?
not as much as I'd like. I've been really tapped out this week, but I have been playing it. I got through like first world and a half, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I played through maybe the first two worlds, but I wasn't I wasn't the guy, I was the pad.
Mm,
Like I was, and which I guess you're not a character, like you're not like Locky 2 making platforms appear. You're just like the guy with the pad.
right.
So yeah, I was the guy with the pad, and that was so much freaking fun. Like
Mm,
I haven't had that much fun with a new Super Mario game like maybe ever.
really? And
Yeah,
that makes sense. As a designer, you kind of get to be co-designer when you have the gamepad. You kind of on the fly have to create a level to affect the other person playing.
right. Yeah, for better or for worse, right?
Yeah.
So, like you can do so much cool stuff. Like you can tap the mushroom and make it jump, and you can tap and create platforms. And then there's like there will be like a rotating thing like this, and you tap it and it kind of goes and goes back, and then starts going again. And
Yeah.
so you can help people out, but you can also like screw with people. So I had a guy that was coming, and he runs in like this, and the mushroom is like right here. And so I would tap the mushroom, and then it would go right over him as he would go by, and then he would turn back around, and I would tap it again. And like, I mean, we were on the floor laughing, and it's like that's that kind of fun that Nintendo brings that I just like can't find anywhere else. It was great.
Yeah.
I was sold on the Wii U the instant that I got it in my hands.
Me
So
too. And
like,
people often, I don't know if you know this, I'm known as like liking Nintendo a lot. So people assumed it was because I just like everything they do kind of blindly. But it's
right,
been really gratifying for me to see other people also like the Wii U a lot more than I did. People who didn't like the Wii U whatsoever are loving Miiverse and are loving a lot of the launch games that have come out,
yes,
like Zombie U and New Super Mario Brothers U. I may not even be the biggest fan of the Wii U I know, which is neat for me to just be a regular guy again in terms of Nintendo fandom. But anyway, more about you. Double Dragon Neon is your latest release.
yes.
That game has blown a lot of people's minds. I know a lot of people have said for the humor, for the unique way that it does character progression and power progression, while
Mhm.
staying true to kind of the more base. Like to me, Double Dragon is about as simple as beat 'em ups get, and you stayed true to that simplicity while somehow extrapolating in terms of both gameplay and just the general feel of the game. While other people are like, "Oh no!" Like I actually got an email from someone who will remain nameless, who mixed me up and thought I worked for a joystick. and wrote a long complaint. And he's a really nice guy. He's actually a game designer. He's a really smart game designer too. He wrote a really long email complaining about my review of Double Dragon Neon because the score was too high. And I was like, I didn't write that. He's like, oops, sorry. But really, though, that score was too high. I'm like, okay. And from his standpoint, it was objectively not a good enough game.
Right.
But how could that be true if so many other people subjectively say that they love it? So how does that go for you as the designer when people are saying that your game has objective flaws in the face of the fact that you obviously, I hoped you liked the game. I hope you weren't forced to rush it out before you liked it, and that other people have definitely enjoyed it.
Well, I feel like every game that I work on is rushed out just because you can never finish it, right? There are a million things that we wanted to add to Double Dragon that we wish we could have put in there, but we just didn't have the time. Mm-hmm. But as far as people that would say it's an objectively bad game, I mean, heck, at that point, what do I really say to you? Except if it's not your cup of tea, I guess it's just not your cup of tea. Mm-hmm. I think if you just straight up don't like beat 'em ups, then maybe there wouldn't be a lot for you to find there in Double Dragon, which is a beat 'em up. And if you really hate the 80s, and if you hate like humor, and you think like funny stuff just sucks, then maybe you wouldn't like Double Dragon, or like if you hate like solid like action. Like, okay, here's a good example is I don't want to hate on like Uncharted because I know it's like so popular and because everyone loves it. But I really think Uncharted is an objectively bad game. Like from my point of view.
First one or all of them?
2 especially. I didn't play 3, but 2 was just like mouth throw up, like could not stomach it. But that's just me, right? And there are so many people that love that series and that love those games and that enjoy, I think, the story and that enjoy like the feel of how it is. Mm-hmm. But it's just not for me. And I think that was probably the opinion of some people that are just hating on Double Dragon for what I would see as like illegitimate reasons.
Mm-hmm. I have been called all sorts of names for my opinion about Uncharted 2. It really was exactly what I don't want in a video game in every way. Everything from, I was talking about Metroid before and how I was so excited about how it was like throwing things at me that I never would have expected and was intentionally leading me in the wrong direction. So I had to learn for myself what to do instead of just going by what I'd known from other games. You couldn't play it just like how you played Mario. You had to think outside the box. Uncharted 2 was the exact opposite. It was like, it throws you in peril, like, oh, train crash, oh, I'm going to be really scared. Right. And it's just like, press up to live. Yeah. It's like, okay, I'll keep pressing up. It doesn't really feel all that dangerous anymore. Just up to not die. And then you just not die, and then cutscene.
Yeah, you'll be pressing up, like yes, like that's exactly what happens. And you'll be pressing up, and then like a rock will fall in front of you, and you're like, oh, I guess it almost hit me.
It teaches you that none of the threats are real, that they're all just set pieces. You just feel like you're on a movie set, and you know that it's all special effects, that none of that stuff is actually going to kill you. And I honestly didn't get too far into the game after that. I finished
Uncharted 2.
You really tried, huh?
Because I feel like you really have to finish a game in order to like objectively review it.
True, absolutely. So you know what it is from every angle, and how did that make you feel in terms of being a game designer to have a game be critically acclaimed and so many Game of the Year awards? It didn't actually sell as well as a lot of people think. It's no. Right. Mario or Call of Duty in terms of sales, but you wouldn't know that from the gaming press. No, the amount people were talking about that game was just, God, shut up about it. But they were obsessed with, this is the direction that video games are going to go in. Uncharted 2, it's a new benchmark. You'll never have to play Resident Evil again because now you've got Uncharted 2. And to me, that really worried me. But as a designer, how did that make you feel in terms of, like, did you start to think you'd have to start designing games like that in order to
No, I'd rather deliver pizza than design games like that. And I'm 100% dead serious, like in every way. And yeah, it was sort of scary to me because I was thinking if this is what people like, and if this is where everything is going, then like maybe there's just like not a place for me in this industry. Like maybe like if people that love Super Metroid and Mega Man and Super Mario Brothers are all gravitating towards this new thing, which is just kind of like an on rails like non-game action game like experience. It's like like watching a DVD that you just have to keep pressing play on over and over again. Like I don't want to be a part of that. Like it's
Edmund McMillan of Super Meat Boy.
Yes.
He calls that DVD the game. He's got like a whole genre that he puts in the category.
Well, then he is absolutely 100% right. Yeah, I haven't actually heard that, but that's totally true. But the good part is I don't think that everyone is gravitating towards games like Uncharted. I think what's happening instead is like the industry and maybe even fans are diverging a little bit. So you have all these people that love the Assassin's Creeds and the Uncharteds, and it's like they're kind of like the big popcorn movie experience. And then you have like the indie games and the art house games and like the cool stuff that we do at WayForward, which goes like to a different audience. And then it's like the blue ocean, right? Like the Wii U blue ocean. I kind of feel like the whole ocean sort of like washed over to iOS, and now that's where everyone is playing games that are a little bit like not as deep experiences. So it's like we have all these different areas now, and they can all kind of coexist peacefully. That's what I'm hoping anyway.
Yeah, I found that to be the case as well. I think whenever you're in the middle of kind of a console war and you're not sure what console is going to come out on top and what type of development everyone's going to try to gear towards, because people are still finding their footing in terms of how they're going to succeed on these new consoles. It's a scarier thing. But now that the Wii, PS3, 360 generation is over, on its way to being over, I found that everybody can survive. It's such a relief.
Yeah, I mean,
nobody has to die.
Yeah, it's incredible. And Steam and the the Steam like the Steam box, whenever and if that is going to come out is like hugely exciting to me. The Wii U is just like it's so good. It's just so freaking good. Yeah, sorry, I just need to talk about how awesome the Wii U is a little bit more. Because like, okay, the Wii, when it came out, it was like, I played Wii Sports and I thought this just doesn't work. Like I cannot reliably perform actions using my controller. It would be like if the B button would only work 8 out of the 10 times that you pressed it. And so I was like, this is not a good control method, and this is like we're not going anywhere with it. And that's the reason that Boy and His Blob doesn't use any Wii motion control at all, which I actually honestly I kind of regret. Like why didn't I make it so you could point the Wii remote where you wanted to throw the jelly beam? I don't know. Now
pointer control would have been okay, but it wasn't a deal breaker either way. I didn't think it was easy.
I don't think so. But anyway, when the Wii came out, I was just disappointed that this was the direction that Nintendo was deciding to take everything in general. But now the Wii U, it's like it has everything that is great about the Wii and about the other current gen consoles, but all just kind of like rolled into one. You have
with the DS on top of that. That's like
you have
every
a DS.
console.
You can play a DS it's like the DS, the console. It's powerful enough to do all the stuff that we're doing like nowadays. It has what appears to be like a pretty good like download and like app like distribution plan, which is a little bit different than the way it was on the Wii. Just the way that it works. You got Miyamoto going like door to door asking people if they want to like develop games for it. I feel like it's just going to be it's going to be like this huge outpouring of creativity, and it has everything that's like good about gaming and like nothing that's like bad. Like you have to use the Wii Motion Plus, right? Like regular Wii remote doesn't work. Like it doesn't work on the Wii U, and it doesn't work like kind of in general, right? But the Wii Motion Plus works like really well. And so you have this tablet, like playing it on the TV and on the tablet is great. Like it's just everything about it is awesome. They even
like it. Oh, my dog is going berserk all of a sudden. Sorry about that. Can you hear that, dog?
About the Wii U.
My dog's tried to chew my Wii U tablet a few times.
Uh-oh.
Come here, dog. Maybe if I satiate her with rubs, she'll stop interrupting my important talk show. Come here, dog. Here, let's talk about other things in the meantime. This is such an interruption. Come here. Oh, I was so close to grabbing her ass when she ran for it. What a shame. Maybe if I lock her somewhere. Wow, this has never happened before. I apologize. I do this show, in case you couldn't tell, out of my house. Normally, my dog is kept quiet by helpers, but today, no. Okay, I think we're okay now.
Totally.
Oh, I guess that gave people time to reflect on the Wii U and how excited you are about it. But do you have any concerns that it's hitting the market at a time where, because to me, I'm worried it's not going to succeed. I think a lot of people who like it are already worried that because it's in between console generations in terms of power, and that people don't understand what it is. The commercials are leading people in really weird directions. I was just reading a story on Go Nintendo showing all the tweets, people saying, so what's the Wii U? It's like a portable Wii, or I don't know what that thing, I need that to play Just Dance 4? Forget it then. Just having no idea what it is. So I'm personally concerned it's not going to succeed, but at the same time, I can't help but think it's too good to fail. I mean, it really is a huge step up in so many different ways. But what do you think? How do you think it's going to do?
Well, I hope it does extremely well, and I believe that if Nintendo put out like a 16-bit console again, that it would still probably be successful, because it's going to have really excellent games on it, as Nintendo always does. It's almost like it doesn't matter. The only time that Nintendo had problems was during the GameCube days, right? When they put out Mario Sunshine and Wind Waker and other games that were obviously released halfway through development.
Yeah.
Right? But now it's they have just such great offerings that you can't get the Nintendo experience anywhere but on Nintendo. I feel like I'm a Nintendo representative talking about this. But it's really it's just really true. I love playing Nintendo games, and I think many people do, in ways they deliver entertainment in ways that no other company can. And so I have confidence that the Wii U will succeed just based on the software. But even on top of that, you have, and I think what is a pretty inexpensive console, and it's definitely going to get more inexpensive as time goes on, right? It's already launching at a price that's only slightly above what the 360 and PS3 cost. But they're just going to keep going on it for what I imagine will be a pretty long time. The install base is going to go up. I mean, it's just like the 3DS, right? Everyone was like, oh, 3DS, no one's going to buy it. iOS and iPhone and iPad games are completely going to take it over. And I mean, look what happened. They released Mario 3D Land. They released Mario Kart 7, a slew of other awesome games. And the content sells the systems, as I have confidence it will continue to do in the future.
No, I hope so. It's going to be interesting to see if third parties want it to succeed and help it to succeed and want to get involved with it and assume that they're going to succeed with it. Because I'm still puzzled by what happened with the Wii. As a Wii third-party developer, you can hopefully shed some insight on this for me, because I saw third parties look at the Wii and be like, I know what that's good for.
Right.
Genres nobody plays anymore, like point-and-click adventure games. And then Capcom makes an incredible game out of Zack and Wiki. It's but nobody actually plays games like that anymore. Just make a first-person shooter. That's what everyone likes. And no one did it for Red Steel came out. And after that, there was nothing for a long time. And Red Steel was, they made it.
Yeah.
And the pointing is good, but it had no character and no staying power.
Red Steel 2 used the Wii Motion Plus, and I thought the control was a lot better.
But by that time, the people had already soured to the Red Steel name that they avoided that game, even though it's so much better than the first one. It's a shame. Yeah. So for me, the third parties in the Wii didn't fit because third parties saw the Wii and thought, oh, well, if you tack on certain control aspects, you can succeed. Or if you just don't put a lot of money into it, because those Wii people, they don't care about graphics, because if they did, they wouldn't have bought a Wii. So we'll just make it look like a PS1 or a PS2 game. They were fine with it. WayForward, of course, didn't do that with A Boy and His Blob and also with Lit. There are two games that actually got critical acclaim and hopefully sold okay for you guys. But so many other developers didn't put any genuine passion into the system. It seemed like, and just tried to cash in off the
Well,
gimmicks and take the
yeah,
easy road.
I'd say that's definitely true. And then I think maybe something that you're not mentioning is people bought the Wii, I think, as a Wii Sports machine. Like that was it, right? Like
Sure.
you, like my grandma got the Wii, but she only has Wii Sports for it, and like she still plays bowling like once a week
Hmm.
on the Wii, like on Wii Sports, right? But as far as she's concerned, that's only a Wii Sports machine, and I think that many people who bought the system were
Hmm.
buying it like that. It's like, oh man, what is this? Like you can do tennis or you can do bowling, and it just feels right. And this
Hmm.
is something now where I could never play games before. Like I understand what bowling is, or I understand what tennis is, and now this is like something that I want because I'm standing up and I'm doing it. But then it's
Hmm.
like, hey, now it's like, well, do you want to try Mario Galaxy 2? And it's like, well, what do you like? What? Like my grandma's not going to play Mario Galaxy 2, you know? Like she's not even
Sure.
going to buy Wii Sports Resort because she already has Wii Sports. Like she
Right.
sees it as a like as an appliance, and you don't need any more games for that. So I think that's one of the reasons that third parties didn't do too hot. Then on
Hmm.
top of that, it was like this gold rush of mini game collections, right?
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
like we'll just make a million mini game collections, and they're all going to be not too different from one another, but those are easy to put out, so we'll just put them all out. So you had like a whole ton of those, right? And then you had these gems, like these diamonds in the rough, that were very few and far between, and they were generally like not extremely well marketed. And
Or
then,
not marketable. It's very hard to convey to someone, oh yeah, you're going to love Fragile Dreams. You beat
right,
ghosts with sticks and then get depressed. Talk
right,
to a little backpack. They're like, I don't, there's no way to, I don't know a way to market that game to any audience. Even though it's a wonderful game, it's just not the kind of thing you can convey what it is. But I'm sorry, you were on a run. I didn't mean to cut you off.
well, yeah, sorry. Now I was just thinking about Fragile Dreams and thinking like, well, how could you market Fragile Dreams? You know, I think
Yeah.
maybe the best way it's like just put it on PSP, right, or on Vita now because
Right.
it seems like one of those, right?
Yeah, if it were a download only game, I think, and it got some like Journey style buzz around it,
Right.
like, oh, it's an experience, it's not really a game, which is this weird kind of classism thing that happens in discussing games where people want to think that certain games are experiences and the other ones are like, I don't know, horseshoes. They're all experiences to me though. It
Right.
doesn't add up to say that. But
I think some of them like you just have to like a game. Sometimes you just have to accept it like for what it is and for how like for the rules that the game wants to put on you. And I guess this goes towards the the polarizing reviews that we've received for Double Dragon or for Blood Rain.
mhm.
If you take the game as what it is and you really try to learn what it is on its own merits, I think you're going to have a lot more like enjoyment about it.
Mhm.
For example, I've recently been playing Skyward Sword. I saw that was on like in your top five Wii games.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah, and so I was playing it, and I played it maybe like a year ago, like when it was a little bit more fresh, and
Mhm.
I just couldn't get into it. I got to maybe the second dungeon, and I was like, this is just so it's like so cumbersome, and it's so handholdy, and it's so like verbose, and I just like I don't want to do it. I don't get the stabbing, I don't get the slashing. It's like why are they layering all this unfun stuff on this game
Hmm.
that I just want to like just let me play it, just let me play it because it's like it's like fee like it's like this is the timeline, this is like 10 minutes, and
Mhm.
fee appears here and here and here and here and here and here. It's just like there's only so many times that I need to know about like what the percentage chance of something happening is,
Mhm.
right? And that it's like it's just too much. So I don't know. I decided I'm just going to wipe my save data and I'm going to start it from the beginning and I'm going to really try to play through it as it's supposed to be played through. I'm not
Huh.
going to make any assumptions. I'm not like when I see those red guys that have clubs, I'm not going to be like, "Oh, there's some moblins that I need to go attack." It's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
there's some red guys." Like, what is that? It's like, "Oh, that's a moblin." Okay. And when I started doing that, when I started not having assumptions about what Zelda was and about how to play it, I think the game became a little bit more enjoyable.
Hmm.
Although maybe not completely enjoyable, right?
It's interesting. To me, Skyward Sword is very much about intimacy with the environment. For a lot of people, Zelda is about exploring a big world and being on your own, and that's an aspect of it too. But for me, separate from the Zelda series, Skyward Sword is very much about uh, tons of little moments and little areas that you get to know very, very well. It's almost like a 2D platformer to me in that way. Like I know Mega Man 2 completely in and out, and all these little intricacies to it that I've discovered over the years. Skyward Sword just kept delivering those to me over and over again. Like if I go like this, I can make a guy dizzy if I swing my sword around. I would have never guessed that. And
Right.
the motion controls and just the general game design allow you to get to know the game on a really deep level. But like we were talking about before, the game doesn't handhold you in those directions to learn it at a deep level. Instead, it's got the helper who just tells you inane garbage that you don't need to know. But I just tuned her out. I've been tuning those helpers out since Ocarina of Time, so it didn't really.
And that's where it all started, right? Like that's where the problems started. I think was with Ocarina of Time. Like maybe not just with Zelda, but maybe with like almost the whole game industry and like video games in general. Yeah. This is like, okay, Matt Bozon, the creative director at WayForward, was like a huge Ocarina of Time hater. And when I came to WayForward, I was like, how can you hate like one of the greatest games of all time, right? And now I completely agree with him like 100%.
I've always hated that game. Since day one, and people really think there's something wrong with me because of that. But it didn't. It made me feel like I was in a big meandering set piece with bad graphics.
Well, I thought the graphics were cool back in the day.
I was picky. I only like 2D graphics. That was part of it too. I hated all polygon-based graphics, other than for games like Resident Evil. I gave that a pass because it just was so goddamn scary. It really worked, and I didn't know how a 2D game could be scary in that way. But unless it was really serving the gameplay, I didn't like polygons. And to me, Ocarina of Time was Link to the Past, but stretched out. So you just have to walk everywhere, much farther, and with helpers bothering you, and with ugly graphics. Just bumping.
Well, I think the one thing that bothers me about Ocarina of Time is the reliance on context sensitivity. So you have that A button, or there's actually in Wind Waker they have two context sensitive buttons now. So it's like you go up to something and then it's push, and then when you push against it, then it's like climb over it. Right? Or it's like when you're going against the side of a wall that you're supposed to climb down into, and then you have to push against it and then press the button to slide or to crawl underneath. So you have all this context sensitivity, and it's not fast. And on top of that, you can't experiment with your moveset alone. Like you need to have all those other objects like to kind of like hang out with you and to do all of that stuff like with you. And then each of those items, like you've got the hook shot, the bow and arrow, the boomerang, like all of these items, and each one of them is kind of like a mini game, like in and of itself, right? And especially in Skyward Sword, like that's I've heard people compare it to Wii Sports Resort on more than one occasion, and be like, well, the bomb rolling is just the bowling, and the using the beetle is just like the frisbee.
Oh, sure.
Like each one is just like directly comparable to the other. But when you have that, and each one of those things isn't like holistic, like, okay, in Super Metroid, I feel like it's all pretty holistic. You can shoot missiles and run and wall jump and change to the grapple beam and swing across something and then do another wall jump, and before you hit the ground, you can switch to another missile and shoot it and go through the door. But like with Zelda, it's like you have to go to a pause menu. It's all very cumbersome, and it's all based on just like the button that you have assigned your item to. So when you're in arrows, you're in like arrow mode, and when you have the hookshot, you're in like hookshot mode. And the fact that they aren't all put together is like what kind of bothers me about it. And then
that makes sense. So it's like you have to go to a subscreen to change what game you're actually playing.
Yes.
In the middle of another game. Huh.
Yeah, kind of. And then you're like in Link to the Past, it's like you have tools. And each of those tools just kind of like augments what you're already doing, but the main gameplay kind of is the same no matter what you're doing. So you can still push and pull. You can still slash bushes and pick things up and fall down holes and fight with enemies. But then you just have this auxiliary item, which is your arrows or your bombs or your bombos medallion or whatever.
Right.
I think that's where that's where the shift happened, and then like in the future, like all games sort of like looked at Ocarina of Time, especially the ones that wanted to be cinematic and that wanted to be epic in scope, and said, oh, well, the way that we can do this is through context sensitivity. And so now you have people walking up to an edge and you press the button and they get up it. Or you have people walk up to a ladder and then they go onto the ladder. Or it's a machine and then they start working the machine, or like whatever. So instead of being a game that you're actually controlling, you're just going up to all these different things and then pressing the same button and watching something different happen. And like that's not controlling a game. That's like a busy box, right? It's like that's like pressing. It's like, you know, the cow says, "Mrrr."
To me, it's like not playing but advising. Like you're telling the character, "Hey, do something good."
Right
now. And he's like, oh, you want me to do something good? I'll fix the machine then. I'm like, yeah, that's what I meant. But you didn't actually even know what was going to happen necessarily.
No.
I wonder what you think of Ape Escape. Whoa. Sorry about that, guys. I wonder what you think of Ape Escape. Because to me, Skyward Sword at its best felt like Ape Escape. Like you've got different tools, but you don't need to switch around them a lot of the time. And they truly give you a different feel no matter what the situation is, and the controls are intuitive and instinctive. Like Ape Escape to me was amazing because it made DualShock seem necessary and also simpler and easier than using buttons. It actually felt like an upgrade, and Skyward Sword did that for me too. It's the first game with motion controls. I actually felt like, oh, this is what I wanted to do in the game, but now I can do it more easily without even thinking about it. Right. However, a lot of people who hate Skyward Sword tell me that the game makes them feel bad about themselves and they want to stop playing it, and I can't blame them for that either. That's their experience with it. But anyway, what do you think of Ape Escape? You remember that one?
Yeah, oh yeah, I loved Ape Escape. Like when I played that was when the analog nubs were still convex. Sorry, they were concave as opposed to convex. Like you remember the first DualShock controllers? Like I think this is actually before the Shock came.
You're right. It's pre-Shock.
Yeah, but instead of having the convex rubberized grip, it was concave, and like that's what I remember the most about Ape Escape, because that was the first game that I actually had like a dual analog controller for.
And you fit your thumbs right in there, and you're controlling the guy while you're controlling a remote control car at the same time. You're running and hula hooping and just kicking everyone's ass with the
hula hoop, and you'd spin it around and then you just jet off. That was so freaking it was awesome. I loved Ape Escape, and now that you say that, maybe I could look at Skyward Sword with like through a different lens.
It's like a slower paced Ape Escape for me. So
I just got I'm not that far. Like to be fair, I feel like I can't give a full judgment of Skyward Sword yet, because I've only gotten I just got like the vacuum or the big dust.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so,
it kind of slows down there for a little bit.
I was actually enjoying it because you can run around in third person, and it's like, wow, I'm a Gears of War or Resident Evil style Link, and I'm shooting air at piles of dirt.
And then those face huggers come out at that part, which is really cool. They're freaking fun.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I am enjoying it now, whereas before it really wasn't too hot. But I saw it on your top 5, and I thought, you know what, maybe I'll give it another shot.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for reading my random top 5 I just did out of nowhere. I don't even know where you
I think it was the top 100, and it was pointed out to me because someone said like, oh, Boy and His Blob is right under. And it was like some dumb game, you know. It's like under. Oh, geez, I don't even remember. But they're like, oh yeah, you should like, you know, call him out on it. And I was like, I don't even remember it.
It's very hard to spontaneously. It's like 105 games on that list, and I'm just like, what are all the games I think I like? Just threw them all up. But I was wanting to change the order as soon as I wrote it. But
right, yeah. Boy and His Blob. I mean, way up higher, right?
It should be. It is. It's incredible. Maybe I just haven't played it recently. When it first came out, it completely blew my mind because it was 2D Studio Ghibli, the game, but with aliens. I had not seen that done yet. I'd seen some games try to do Studio Ghibli, like Jade Cocoon was a PS1 game that went for that feel. Wind Waker did it a little bit, but you just like nailed it. You got that, but without aping their style completely. You have your own visual style and own feel, but it's the same sort of serenity mixed with the fear of the unknown and kind of excitement about discovery that I get out of my favorite Studio Ghibli movies. So wonderful job.
Well, yeah, thanks. I mean, that's a huge compliment to, to Mark Gomez. Really, I have to call out as the art director of A Boy and His Blob, and he really defined like the and feel of those characters. Although from the beginning, we knew we wanted to make like, yeah, let's make like the sweet, like sort of saccharine, heartwarming like game. We knew we wanted it to be like Disney style, and then like the Ghibli influence certainly like crept in. And man,
but the hug button. And the drowning. I'll never forget the first time I saw that boy drown.
Okay, it was so much worse. It was so much worse. We, the CEO of WayForward, John Beck, was bringing around publishers. You know, like that's how it works. Is the publisher will come to WayForward and will say, "Here's what we're working on. You know, here's something else that we're working on. We really want to work with you guys. What have you got for us?" And so we kind of put on like a really exciting dog and pony show where we show off all the games, et cetera, et cetera. So we were showing off Boy and His Blob, which was in mid-development. But the drowning animation, first of all, it lasted like 3 or 4 times longer than the original. And the boy would turn slightly blue as he went down. It'd just get bluer and bluer. So he's kind of like reaching for the... and so the boy dies, and the publisher is watching kind of like over this agonizing like 5 full seconds as the boy just drowns and is getting bluer and bluer, and John Beck just goes like, "Oh, that's horrible." I was like, I'm sorry.
But it was so evocative. It really, even the way you left it in, toned down a bit. That game gives you a variety of feelings very quickly through just how you designed the nuances and the minutiae like that. It made me feel awful. Then the hug button makes you feel fantastic, and then the various powers.
This is a good one to talk about, because it used to be where you would press you could press like any of the directions on the D-pad on the control pad, and it would do different things. So like you would press up to hug him, down to scold him, and then like left and right were like 2 other actions that were more like neutral. And so it was going to be a game where you'd have to like manage the blob all the time. Like you'd manage his emotions, or he'd get like too sad and wouldn't want to do anything. But we just decided, okay, that's going to be like the gameplay there is not going to be very fun. So we left the hug button in, and you can scold him too. You know, like he says like, calm down. But you know, no one ever talks about the scold button. Anyway.
Yeah, I never. Maybe it's because I've been scolding people in video games for so long, or just killing them, that it didn't.
Yeah, you don't want to scold anyone. But yeah, the hug is cute. When people bring it up, it's sort of like part of my brain fires off a little bit, because it's like the hug button is not why you should love the game, right? Like you should love it for many reasons, but you shouldn't specifically call out the hug button. But as time has gone by, I think I've gotten a lot more, like calm about it. And so now I can talk about.
You sound like Beck.
It was just a little gimmicky, right? Like I heard Bobby McFerrin was really upset about "Don't Worry, Be Happy" as like that was the song that everyone knew him for. And I mean, that guy has perfect range. He's like, he conducts symphonies. He's like a brilliant artist, right? But everyone knows him for "Don't Worry, Be Happy," and that's a little bit of the way that I felt about the hug button. It's like we made this whole game like with this wonderful tone, and there's all these moments, and people are like, "Oh, well, what did you think about like the hug button?" It's like.
The thing about it is, this happens to a lot of developers I know who do something or say something that all of a sudden everybody's talking about. They're like, "No, don't. That was just an offhand thing. It's not who I am. It's not a big deal." But when you intentionally or accidentally just hit upon what gaming culture is hungry for, or is thinking about, or has bottled up that they haven't found a way to express it, you just kind of have to deal with the fact that you did something that really touched a lot of people. And the hug button was the exact opposite of where video games were going. Yes. It's like, how many more different ways can we kill a guy? You're the only game I can think of that found a new way to show affection to an NPC. So, he became infamous for it. And hopefully it helped people look into WayForward a little bit more. They heard about the hug button and then found out about Contra 4 after that.
Definitely. I mean, I'm not sore about the hug button. I'm just kidding around.
No, it's very interesting to hear your perspective on it. A bunch of questions came in. We've barely talked about any of your games. I apologize. It's just been one of those organic conversations. But they're going to be asking questions about them, which is great. Okay. Brogeef wants to know, Where's that online patch for Double Dragon Neon? Is that happening? An online patch?
Okay, this is one of the official things that I am not allowed to talk about.
So, was there online patch announced?
There's an online patch announced, and an online patch is promised, and everyone should email Majesco and talk to them about how much they're excited for that online patch and how much they want to see it. And I'm not allowed to talk about it.
That makes perfect sense, because that's more the publisher. You
Yes.
were paid by the publisher to make a thing. You can't really talk about what the publisher's going to do.
That is generally how WayForward works. We do work for hire games. Blood Rain is work for hire. Double Dragon Neon is work for hire. Blob was work for hire, and all with Majesco actually. So 3 cheers for Majesco, because they've let us put out all this awesome stuff. But if you want the game released in another territory, then you should contact the publisher, not us, because we can't do anything about it. Like, we would love to, but we can't. Or if you want it to come to another platform, et cetera, and people get that. They get it confused quite a bit. So
I want them all on the Wii U, because I'm really...
Me too!
I am amazed by how quickly the Wii U's on-screen, on-controller play has just changed my life. I always thought it would when I first heard about it, because I'm married, and my wife, doesn't really want to watch me play a 70-hour RPG, and fitting in the time for Skyward Sword was really hard. I had to wait for her to go to sleep or just be a jerk and tell her to not watch TV. But now I'm constantly playing. I'm playing Little Inferno. I'm playing New Super Mario Bros. U. I'm constantly getting to play on this big, beautiful handheld. It's not portable, but it's a handheld. And I think all of your games would look really nice on that screen. So I will email Majesco about that.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
I will. I'll tell him today. Sintraquila says, Sean said he likes to finish games. Does it follow through in how he designs games? I think I understand what that means. I ask because I know some developers skim the ending because most players never finish their games. So do you play games with the intention of them being completed from beginning to end? I think that's what he's asking.
Right. Well, that's actually a really good question. And at WayForward, we generally follow the rule of having very strong beginnings and very strong endings, because that's what, everyone is going to remember the beginning, and everyone is going to remember when they closed the game out. But the middle part isn't necessarily going to be like the most important part of the game. So yeah, I always try to have a strong finish, although that doesn't mean a strong ending. Like, if you noticed, in Blood Rain, after you escape the castle, there's like a 10-second cinematic that is absolutely just it's not important in any way, because the joy of playing Blood Rain is playing it and going through it, right? So when you finish it, there's nothing else to see. But every moment of that game, especially the final boss battle against Zeta Gamma, same thing with in Double Dragon, that final boss battle against Skullmageddon, and the song at the end and all of that stuff. We really just wanted to focus on making it as cool as possible. And Double Dragon is a game that's only an hour and a half long, or a couple hours, maybe 3 hours your first time through if you're being slow about it. So we're hoping that everyone can see that also. But yes,
I meant to ask, how did it feel to take on the Double Dragon license? Because it's such a weird license. It was huge when I was growing up. It was pre-Street Fighter. It was everybody who wanted to punch someone in the face. That was what you went to, was Double Dragon. You didn't have any other alternatives. And then it got a movie starring Alyssa Milano and Scott Fox and some other guy and Jason Patrick. And it was everywhere. There's a cartoon series. At one time it was... And now you've been given it at this point where it's kind of a thing some people remember, or younger people have never even heard of, and were asked to kind of revitalize it. So how did that feel?
Well, my Double Dragon experience was on Sega Master System, actually. My friend had Double Dragon for Sega Master System, which I believe you could actually play 2-player. And
unlike the NES one, which was...
Exactly. Yeah. And so that was great. And the graphics were a lot better, I think, than the NES version also. But it felt pretty much the same. And then after that, we played through all the Double Dragons. When the project actually came down the pipe, we got more into it. We found Double Dragon Advance, which is, I think, kind of where the gameplay of Double Dragon Neon, some of the inspiration is. It's mainly because you can do a ducking move, and then from that duck, you can do a flying knee. and that's like one of the core tenets of Double Dragon Neon is like the duck. So you can duck to dodge out of the way, and then you can follow up with a retaliatory move or any other moves. So Double Dragon Advance was a big influence. Double Dragon 2, I think, was probably the development team's favorite Double Dragon. So we looked at that and made a lot of, you fight a helicopter in Double Dragon 2 and in Double Dragon Neon. You fight a giant tank war tank style thing in Double Dragon 2 and in Double Dragon Neon. Williams cartwheeling is in Double Dragon 2. And so a lot of the cues that we took were from that game. But then, of course, a Boba busting out of the wall, Linda, being a Mohawk whip wielding crazy woman, like all that stuff. We knew we had to incorporate all of that. So yeah, it was a big responsibility, but we also knew that we didn't want to be too beholden to everything that had already come before it. So we could have kind of a new path, and that's the same thing that we try to do with every retro reboot that we do. So like with Contra 4, it's like what do people remember about Contra that was so great? What do people love about Contra? It's like, well, the spread gun and like tons of guys coming at you and the bridge blowing up and you falling down into it, right? Like that's why we put that in there in stage 1 of Contra 4, is because that was one of the things that so many Contra players had memories of, that we just had to do it. Same thing. Waterfall Alien comes back at the end of the second stage. We call him the Waterfall Alien. I don't even know what the real name of that is.
Yeah, I don't know. And riding the missiles, that was such a.
Yes.
And you took that to the next level. In Contra 4.
Yeah. So
definitely.
It's paying homage to all the stuff that came before. And it's really just trying to dig down and see what the tone of that game is and what the feel of that game is, whatever game it is that you're rebooting. So for Contra, it was like, the feeling of like aggression and like being overwhelmed by a bunch of stuff on the screen, crazy bosses, and then just like manly like bro attitude.
Right.
For Neon, actually for Contra 4, I wanted to do something similar to Neon. Like I wanted to have nuclear high fives and Bill and Lance. I wanted Bill and Lance to high five, and for their everyone did. I don't want to take credit for any of these ideas, but this is the stuff we were talking about during the development. Let's have Bill and Lance high five, and their shirts like burn off, and it's like, oh, why can't I quit you, Lance? Like sort of like weird neon growiness, and all of that, like all of those ideas were transplanted right over into Double Dragon Neon, which
awesome.
is just so goony but so funny. We had just such an awesome time making it. I don't know, it was great. Like Double Dragon Neon was so much freaking fun. I hope that
it comes across. Yeah, and even the people that have complained about it, no one can deny that the spark of joy and comedy and tribute and parody are all there. At least no one I've talked to. It's just so apparent in Double Dragon Neon that you had a lot of fun with it, and that fun is contagious, at least to me. I didn't get to tell you what the developer, his complaints were. I vaguely remember his email. He's a fighting game developer, and he sees the beat 'em up as a fighting game where you just take on multiple opponents quickly. At least that's what I took from what he wrote. And he wanted Double Dragon to be like a fighting game with tons of different combos. You can start this move and then branch off into 3 other moves, and then 3 other moves, and 3 other moves. And right. I actually got some of that from Double Dragon Neon, but at the same token, I didn't expect it from Double Dragon Neon. I'd expect that maybe from a Castle Crashers or a Code of Princess, but not from Double Dragon Neon, because that's not what Double Dragon was about. It was about anybody can play this game because it's punch, kick, and jump. And you, of course, added duck as well, and there's branching things you can do. But that was his big complaint, and he said because it doesn't have this branching, then therefore it is bad. What is your response to that?
Well, first of all, I would say that it does have quite a bit of branching. You can do like the spin kick, which is the third hit of the kick. You can do like from your punches, so you can chain like punch to spin kick. You can dodge out of the way and follow that up with like a flying knee, stun a guy, grab him, and then while he's in the air, your buddy can flying knee him back up into the air, and you can juggle it. You have a host of different magic moves, your Sosetsu's, and there are 10 different ones, and they all have different effects. maybe it's a matter of just experimenting with the game a little bit more, like learning to use your ducking and rolling, really like giving those guys like the flying knee, learning how to dodge the moves, finding out where the weapons are. I mean, it is not a fighting game exactly, and it can't be as complex as a fighting game because you're dealing with multiple opponents. So there, a bat drops, and all of a sudden, over where the bat dropped, that is where your attention is going to go. So you need to go roll over and grab the bat, then start nailing guys with it. It's like a power up, right? Then it's gone. You can fly back over to the other area via a roll or something and start beating up guys. And it's more like about management, right? Like it's somewhere between like a fighting game and like a Robotron or something, where there are a bunch of enemies like encroaching on you, and you need to figure out like what you're going to do. So,
right. So it's crowd control versus in the moment combos and that sort of fighting game.
And Blood Rain, I think, is also like largely the same way, where you have many opponents, right? Like more than Double Dragon Neon, and you're trying to shoot them and get them all in a line and hit them all at once. You're trying to use your dash slash in the corner to kill all the guys like simultaneously, or you're going to blow up a guy and get all the other ones like in the crossfire. So yeah, it's crowd control combined with like a fighting game, like gameplay, but you can't have too much there because it's gonna be too overwhelming for people. And I think that was already maybe that was already one of the problems with Double Dragon, is that people weren't playing it to its full potential. So if we added twice as many moves, I might be even a little worried to see what the reaction would be. That bums me. I want to know who it is.
I'll tell you afterwards. You guys can engage in a discussion. He's very nice guy, but he's very serious about game design.
I mean, that would be excellent. Like I'd love to just have a conversation.
Yeah, you both might learn stuff and enjoy it, and be like, "Huh, I would have never thought of that." That's what I hope comes of it anyway. He's a great guy. Hopefully, he'll be back on the show. But I'm ignoring other questions. I'm sorry. Don Cairo asks, if you could choose to make a 2D installment for any franchise not typically associated with 2D games, which franchise would you choose? 2D Uncharted? I bet you could.
A 2D Uncharted. Well, I mean, we would have to completely invent all the gameplay. So,
it's shooting and some jumping and swinging from ropes and running away from explosions.
And light stealth elements, right? Sort of.
Yeah, sometimes a little. Yeah.
Stop and pop shooting a little bit. And just you know what? I think that Uncharted would probably be a far better game in 2D.
Me too. I've actually seen fake mock-ups of it, and I want to play Uncharted 2D.
Yeah, I mean, it's largely, really, it's kind of like at that point, it's more like a Prince of Persia, or I guess, I don't know, they did some side-scrolling Tomb Raiders, like, on handhelds. Maybe it would play, like, a little bit like that. But no, it would have to be much better. Like, I guess Shadow Complex, right? Like, you've already got Nolan North as the voice actor.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty close anyway, although I guess that's more of a Super Metroid. Oh, man. Shadow Complex. What
do you think of that game?
Those Unreal 3 games that basically, like, if a game doesn't run at 60 frames per second, I have like a real problem with it. And for a game like Shadow Complex to go out there and be like, yeah, we're a Super Metroid, but it only runs at 30, and there's something up with their collision system where you can't do like a toenail jump, right? You can't be at the very edge of something and then reliably stand, and like there's only one pixel of your feet on there, but you don't fall. And so I just felt it was like a little slidey and not extremely like well honed from the gameplay perspective. But that being said, I still beat it, 5 times.
Yeah, that was a game that I definitely I felt it was so popular and so talked about because people just happen to be really hungry for that.
Yes.
If you don't feed someone Brussels sprouts for a year and you give them Brussels sprouts, they'll be like, oh my God, I remember these guys. But if you feed it to them every day, they're going to want pizza. And people were sick of what they had, and Shadow Complex came out when people were hungry for that. Whereas if it came out today, and so many games have done that sort of thing in the past few years, I don't think there would be as much talk about it, personally.
Yeah.
So dog food, dude.
What would be the franchise that I would want to work with that wasn't 2D?
Yeah.
So it would have to be one that was like started with in 3D.
Yeah, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider.
Oh man, Resident Evil would be pretty. I think, yeah, because it would have to be like a classic. It would have to be a classic brand, like probably from a Japanese developer, right? Like if you ask
Probably.
me if I could make any game, like heck, I'd love to really do like a new Zelda, like a side-scrolling Zelda. I think could be like really amazing. Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah, have you played Legend of the Princess? I think it's called by Joachim
oh yeah,
Sandberg.
yes, yes,
Yeah, that's pretty
yeah.
neat. He's a
It is,
neat
yeah,
guy.
that thing is awesome. I would love to do. Zelda 2 is like one of my favorite games ever.
Huh.
Yeah. Well, okay, and here's why. It's because the combat in that game, like the feel of fighting a guy with a sword, is like one of the most like well crafted gaming experiences that has ever existed. When you go against an Iron Knuckle, it's like he has a high shield and a low shield, and then you have like your high sword and your low sword, right?
Mhm.
And it is like it's so about like dodge, thrust, and parry, right? Or if you want, you can just jump and like if the guy is here, I love it. Do you like how I'm using the Google Hangout like as a screen constantly?
Yeah, I do.
The
Shows how
reason
you think. Yeah, absolutely.
the
So if you're
reason
standing on the right side of the screen, yeah.
yeah, sorry. The reason I do
That's
that is because we use Google Hangouts at WayForward,
oh yeah.
and so we have there are several offsite people that live in New York and Chicago, and we do a Google Hangout like 3 times a week to kind of talk through things, and we'll just end up doing this, or we'll use like the where you can do the screen share where you can draw and sort of like share a drawing, and we're all just kind of like
Oh,
drawing all
I
at
should
once.
start doing that. That sounds
It's a lot of
awesome.
fun. Yeah, it's
Mm,
it's it's great for development.
yeah.
So anyway, it's like, yeah, you've got an iron knuckle like right here, and you can kind of jump into an angle, and if you hit your sword out just as you are falling, then you can hit both the top and bottom collision at the same time, so he can't move like fast enough. So if you kind of just like do this jumping slash, you can get him like almost every time.
I remember that. I didn't know why that worked, but I had learned like Pavlovian style to just do that maneuver and I will succeed. That game was so hard as a kid. Like it
Yeah,
felt, why are you doing this to me? I'm just a boy. Don't make me have to fight a guy who's got all the skills that I do because our knuckles have the sword and shield,
yes,
except they are the computer, so they know what I'm going to do. Whereas I am just a small person and I have
right.
no idea what they're going to do. So
My
good though.
with the problem with Zelda 2, I think, is that it has almost no guidance whatsoever. Like
Mm.
you just don't know where you're going
Mhm.
for like any of the time. And heck, I mean, to get into the first dungeon where you get the candle, which lets you illuminate caves, you need to go through a completely
Dark
unilluminated
cave.
cave, which is like every player I imagine in the entire world is going to walk in, see the dark cave, and then just leave
Mm.
because I can't navigate this, right? So
Mhm.
it's like
Mhm.
that doesn't make sense. But like the gameplay, the way that you can level up and choose if you're going to level up your life, your sword, or your magic.
Mhm.
The kind of like constant, like I wouldn't say like sequence breaking, but counting up everything. Like when I play Zelda 2, I count the points that I'm going to be getting to. Like it's like, oh well, I'm going to get to 1,000 points at like right here, which means I'm going to be able to get the level 4 sword, and
Mhm.
then I can die. Like then I can lose all 3 of my lives because I got my new level, and I can spawn back at the castle and then keep going. So
Whoa. So in
because
terms of your like overall strategy, it gives you the opportunity to really plan ahead with not only when you're going to die, but how you're going to come back to life.
right, it's like it's so much fun. It's like you're doing a run, like you do a
Mm.
run of the game. I guess this is the theme, the recurring theme, right? Same thing with Super Metroid. It's like you can do a run of that game, and you can learn it, and the having like those games, I love those games so much that I feel like they are a part like of myself,
Mm.
like sort of
Mhm.
like how you said with the Metroid thing. Um, like I can't imagine a world where I don't know that the ball is going to be over on the left.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know what I mean? And
Right.
like I think that's what probably a lot of players that really love games. Like you're talking about the original Metroid. It's just just such a visceral thing of loving this game and being just so into this game. Like that's what I don't know. That's how I feel about Zelda 2, and that's how I feel about like Super Metroid and Mega Man 2. Another
Mm.
game that you mentioned.
Yeah, I
Uh,
love that game a lot. I think as I'm getting to know you better, Sean, I believe there was a time in your life where Skyward Sword could have been your Zelda 2.
I
Because I know it's hard for you to believe, but speedrunning Skyward Sword and learning the intimate intricacies of exactly how, because it's the same sort of thing. The high-low guessing game from
yeah.
Zelda 2 is a big part of Skyward Sword, except
Yeah.
it's block like this, like this. So anticipating that, finding cheats around it, and using the dash effectively in order to maximize how quickly you make it from one end of the map to the other while knowing exactly where all the little fruits are. Like a speedrunning the last boss of Skyward Sword, I can do that all day. It's almost like Punch-Out. Not to spoil it for you, but I don't know if you're a Punch-Out fan or
Yeah,
Super Punch-Out.
I love Punch Out. I mean, especially Super Punch Out. And
Me too.
the art director of Punch Out for Wii came to the WayForward offices, and we were talking to him, and it was just like I just couldn't like stop gushing because that Wii game is so incredible. Like the facial animations and the
Yeah.
expressions that those guys have, after they do the attack and then they miss, and it's like oh, like that's like, it's just like it's so good. Like Don Flamenco in particular, I just yeah,
Yeah.
it elicited great feelings.
Me too. They completely nailed it, in my opinion. The multiplayer, but you just don't bother with it and stick with the pure Punch-Out experience. But the last boss, and a lot of the bosses of Skyward Sword, the best bosses of Skyward Sword feel like Punch-Out with a sword. And I would want them to make a full game that's just that. Just Punch-Out with a sword would make me feel fantastic. I'm ignoring other questions. I feel bad. I'm sorry. Spamfish wants to know, is there a reason WayForward seems to focus on reimagining existing franchises and not new IPs? And what game developer would Sean like to see make a game in the Boy and His Blob universe? I
Oh,
think I understand what that question
how about
is.
WayForward? You know, we could do another one. I mean, I would yeah, like here's what I would love to do for a new Boy and His Blob.
Oh, yeah?
Have Boy and His Blob and have a girl and her blob, and the whole game is co-op, and you need to like the boy could make a like the ball, you know, the Zorb ball, and then the girl like could make like a ramp or something like that, and then you need to like use them in conjunction with one another like to get through. But then
Would
instead,
you be, so it would be two-player.
it would be
You wouldn't
yeah,
be controlling four characters. That
no,
would
no,
be,
no, no, no. This would be like
gotcha.
a co-op, yeah, like a co-op campaign. But then I imagine the game instead of being about like friendship, and like kind of the heartwarming friendship between like two friends, it would
Mhm.
be like the love element is introduced, and it like would put like a stress like on the
Mm.
relationship like between the boy and the blob. And so it's like it
Oh.
would be about like young love, you know, and it would be really sort of bittersweet.
Yeah, I have friends who won't hang out with me unless I bring my wife. Because they're like, yeah, it's couples only now, dog. I'm with this girl, and,
Right.
she doesn't want you around unless you bring her wife. So it would be kind of like that, I would assume. Maybe the blobs wouldn't want to hang out. Do blobs have genders? What is that
The
blob?
yeah we would do a female blob like you know but maybe we do like a Ms. Pac-Man bow or we put like or you know just like eyelashes
Yeah,
she's like maybe a little lavendery instead of a little blue you know
yeah, that would work. That would
yeah
be great. So maybe they could find love too for blobs.
right
That would be
that would
nice.
be the idea that the two blobs are the ones that are in love and the boy is the one that feels sad about it.
Oh, because he's just a boy. He's not in love yet. I
Right
get it now. Sorry, it took me a little while.
yeah not
And
well
I don't mean to answer the other part of the question for you, but I just want to strongly advocate that people check out WayForward's own IP because you have
yeah,
done,
we do make original IPs.
yeah, quite a bit, but they're not as, they don't have the brand recognizability because for the most part it's Shantae, Lit, and the Mighty series.
Right.
Am I missing a lot? And there was Sigma Star Saga as well.
That was quite a long time ago at this
Mm.
point. But like what we're doing now and what we're really excited about is Shantae and the Mighty series. So
Mhm.
there was the last month's Nintendo Power, or actually it might be this month. We got the cover for Shantae, and this is also the final issue of Nintendo Power. Like their final regular issue has
Mhm.
Shantae on the cover.
Yeah, the next issue is just all like retrospective, I think.
Yeah, it's
So.
like a commemorative. It's a commemorative thing. Yeah, I was writing one up because they asked WayForward if anyone wanted to write up like a retrospective, and so I'm writing it up. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, Nintendo Power, and I just started bawling because I realized how important that magazine was to me over like over all the years, like Nintendo Power has just like, man, it's been such a big part of like not just my life, but I think like the collective life of any gamer that grew up in the '80s. It's just so yeah. It's really sad, like very bittersweet, I guess, to see it go.
Absolutely.
But I got to pitch, or not pitch, but I have to plug Mighty Switch Force HD, which just came out on the Wii U eShop. Get it. It's an original IP. And if you buy our original IPs, then we will make more original IPs. So buy Switch Force. It's completely great. It has the first 16. Did you play the Switch Forces or Switch Force? Okay.
I played all the Mighty games. I'm a big fan.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, Switch Force HD has like all the regular content, but then on top of that, there are like 16 more hyper levels. And there's an unlockable outfit for Patty, which is like
that I didn't know.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And you can probably imagine what it is. And,
I would guess it's a Metroid suit, but you probably couldn't get away with that.
No, yeah, just Samus.
Yeah, figure it was just Samus.
The licensing we had to do to get that.
It does feel like, for those who haven't played it, some of the most fun parts of Metroid Zero Mission that aren't action-based, where you're just traversing the world, is a lot of the shine sparking and for people who don't know what that means, you run, you get a lot of speed, you have to duck, and then you have to turn to the morph ball and like bounce around the entire screen, and plan it almost like the perfect pinball move, except it's not so much based on luck and physics, it's based on pure strategy and getting an intimate understanding of what the level designers wanted from you. Mighty Switch Force does that in ways that really, and it's a perfect ramping up of difficulty too. They really get you to understand the way the level designers think, and in doing so, you really feel like you get to know them as designers. It's a wonderful game. I just wish it were longer, and you did make it longer with
and
the
it's longer. Yeah, HD.
Now it is longer.
Yeah, it has remix levels, and then and also with the original Switch Force, we had those 5 download levels which were available for free. So on top of the 16, now it's up to what, like 21? I don't know. I think it's great. Like I'm really excited about Switch Force HD, and I think it just looks like fantastic. And I mean I didn't direct that one. I just kind of got to see it from afar, and being able to play it not as a developer but as a fan was hugely. It was just hugely awesome to be able to see that game on my Wii U on day one. And like transfer it to that little screen and have this beautiful screen with this beautiful hand-drawn game on it. I don't know. It was just like, even if it hadn't come out of WayForward, it brings a smile to my heart just to see.
Me too. That's the kind of game that is launching with a new Nintendo console right now, and is hopefully being embraced and appreciated by people. Any chance that we'll get more Mighty Milky Way? That was the game in the Mighty series that you directed. Isn't my favorite. It's got things about it. If they were all different kinds of food, that would be probably the cheese fries with a little bit of lemon on it. It's like, ooh, there's something about it that it's not like anything else. It's got the taste you want from any video game, with just a little extra zing put in. Namely a giant robotic Tyrannosaurus who goes on dates with a French alien.
Right. Well, the dates are just implied.
You're right. You're right. That's what I implied. That's what I inferred from them, I should say.
I don't know what internet searches you've been doing, but that's actually, it's actually kind of cool, like to see all the Rule 34 stuff that we get for like Milky Way or for Switch Force. Like that stuff, it circulates like around the office for sure. There's one of Officer Wagon, and she's like blown up all huge, like a Vore style like balloon inflation thing, and she just like wow, this is so cool. Like that we get to have stuff that's out there that people are that into, that they would draw fan art of it in that sort of fashion.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So is there any chance we'll get more of Mighty Milky Way, or are you moving on to a different Mighty game? Is that a possibility for you?
That's like yes, and yes. This stuff is all possibilities. If you love Milky Way in specific, then you should definitely write in to WayForward, or anyone that's watching this, I would suggest, and say, hey, we want to see more Milky Way, because we're always thinking about, well, what do we do? Do we want to do like more Switch Force? Do we want to bring back Milky Way? Do we want to do like a completely new Mighty game? So just hearing more from the fans would be incredible.
Awesome. I'd like a crossover. I'd like a Flip Champs.
Oh my gosh. Wouldn't you like to wouldn't you love to see like a fighting game or like a Power Stone or like some sort of like multiplayer platformer where you have all of like the WayForward characters, like maybe including Voldy, the tyrannical overlord.
Yeah.
And you can just play them all and it's like this slugfest.
Yeah, Shantae, Paddy Wagon, that would be, well, maybe someday as you expand and you keep getting bigger. And I'm glad people keep giving you their IPs to work with. As much as I enjoy WayForward's original work, I think it's a testament to what your studio's done that you've been trusted with so many fantastic intellectual properties. And we're out of time.
Oh.
We've got to wrap it up. Sean, is there anything I missed that you wanted to say before we go? And do you want people to follow you on Twitter or anything? Because now's the time to tell them if you don't.
I guess I would just move all traffic in the direction of WayForward. So if there's anything exciting that you guys want to talk about, if there's any games that you want to see, we really try to listen to our fans a lot. I mean, we're an indie dev, and our fans are everything to us. So if you say, we want to see a new Shantae, or if you want this thing to be developed by us, then just make the grassroots groundswell thing happen, and we will do it. Because we love games and we're as crazy about games, I think, as our fans are. So
absolutely, that's why you've done it. You're the first game developer studio that everyone I've talked to from the studio grew up on video games. 20 years ago you couldn't have that because what was there to grow up on? But now you guys have grown up and grown in size and keep getting bigger. It's awesome.
Yeah,
to see.
I mean, we are kind of like. I'd like to think we're the first generation of people that are making like postmodern games. It's like a game.
I sort of know what that means. That kind of blows my mind. But yeah, from that I take it the next level of what games that are bred on people who ingested games since day one.
Yeah, we've internalized games, and so now we're using that to push more games out, and I think it kind of gives it a unique voice.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for being on the show, Sean. I should say, I'm at tronnauts.com, and you can watch the show on Dtoid TV on YouTube and also on iTunes. I probably shouldn't swing my arm around so much because I think it freaks out the camera and makes it all blurry. But yeah, we're on iTunes too, so listen to past shows as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's really been an honor, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Sean. It was great. Hopefully you can come on again. We can talk about Metroid all day, it seems.
We could get to some of the games that I worked on.
Yeah, next time for sure. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.
Thanks a lot.